but it just seems like something that Yagao obviously doesn't want to deal with his limited champion pool.
Yagao, always known as more of a Dade-esque player, very, very good on the few champions he does play, but usually doesn't play the entire range available in the meta. EDG are going to go for a blind pick top laner, just something very safe, and something that Flandre has been doing this entire new split. He's going to get the Renekton top, while also the Xayah as a counter to Kaisa.
It also makes me think that EDG are trying to bait JDG into taking away something along the lines of an Italy. They're saying, hey, we're going to show what we're already going for. You can take it away, we don't care. I was going to highlight the good thing about this is that there are actually 3 AP junglers left open, right? We do see the Taliyah Renekton combo. We see it a lot more, I think, globally than we have seen here in the LPL. The Nidalee Renekton as well. And then the Lillia is kind of that soft third option. I don't prefer it too much with the Renekton specifically, but Jiejie definitely having options, and we highlighted the Udyr ban as well.
Does look like JD Gaming are going to go for one of those AP junglers like you were talking about. It is going to be the Lillia. So, interestingly enough, you know, not trying to take away the kill combinations that we've seen EDG run between Renekton Nidalee or Renekton Taliyah. They're going to be free to go for those, but they are going to be satisfied with Kanavi's Lillia, which I would say is probably his second best champion from what we've seen.
It was the champion we saw him gravitate a lot towards the end of the split. JDG's composition right now is kind of coming together in, I'd say, not so obvious of a way. It's going to depend a lot on those last 2 picks, because you have this AD carry who kind of wants to go all in and burst. You have more of this kind of side lane, more, I'd say, hard to control variable in Gnar, right, where you're playing around his mega timing. And then Lillia, this jungler that just really wants to try and outpace the enemy jungler. It depends a lot on her build path. This game thus far doesn't look like it's setting up for much of a Moonstone build, but like I said, JDG's first 3 picks, hard to see what they're doing. EDG, they're kind of going back to the same game plan that they last game. Very strong top and jungle, and you expect to see some kind of more aggressive early game-oriented mid as well.
EDG going back once again, indexing into carry jungler early game, setting up the lanes for very strong gank setups, and EDG also banning away the Akali from Yagao. This is not a champion that he plays a lot, but has shown some proficiency in 1 or 2 games in the last split. In the meantime, JD Gaming going to take away the Syndra. A lot of strong laning champions being taken away from Scout, so I'm kind of interested in what champion that Yagao is going to go for here.
Me too, and I wonder for EDG if you are just going to wait and last pick mid, considering a lot of the priority champions have been banned out. Of course, they can 4th pick Lucian. That is a champion we've also seen Yagao play, so it could be a takeaway, but JDG actually banning that one out. The only real AD mid laner that's high prio that comes to mind is the Yone, but if EDG want to last pick mid, I do think the Leona is another good pickup. Just another point-and-click CC that sets up the Taliyah combo.
Definitely indexing into pick for EDG. They're going to keep their counter pick for mid lane. Now JD Gaming have to be the ones that are showing their cards. We still have Alistar and Set on the table. Both are pretty viable options with Kaisa. Strong kill lanes early on. And the Alistar being the more defensive option to cancel out the Leona is going to be selected by LvMao. And finally, for the mid lane that we've all been waiting for, what is the pick? Because there's so many banned champions away from Scout. It's going to be the LeBlanc. Can Yagao do better on the LeBlanc than the master of Scout himself?
And I mean, this is his best champion, so he's going to show a lot. We remember Spring 2020 Finals. This was pretty much Yagao stepping up and going toe-to-toe at Knight and taking him down. Now for EDG, again, there isn't really any option that I love. Right now, they're flashing the Viktor. I don't think this fits in the fast-paced nature of their composition that we've talked about. The decent thing about it is I actually think it's pretty good against Kaisa. Kaisa doesn't really want to kind of jump into the likes of a Viktor, can put down that gravity field or his ultimate. But yeah, for EDG, it's a bit of a mixed comp, right? It's very clearly going to be playing around the top side of the map early on, and I still think it's more of a pick comp rather than like a full-on 5v5 from EDG. And then for JDG, it's going to be a lot about the bottom half of the map, I think. We're going to be playing with the LeBlanc and with the Kaisa Alistar kill lane that you set up.
Yeah, JDG's composition, they do have some great lane counters. I think just one-on-one, their solo lanes should be favored. But overall, this is, you know, less of a team fight composition, so JDG definitely moving out of their comfort zone. On the other side for EDG, also a bit of a mixed bag where you have pick in the top lane, like you mentioned, and a lot of scaling in their bot side carries. So, you know, both of these teams, I'm glad we're seeing some evolutions in the draft, and they're not going to be running the same draft that they did in Game 1.
And I guess the good thing for the side of EDG is the fact that, okay, at least Viktor will get to a point where he can just kind of mindlessly wave clear in the mid lane and still enable Taliyah. And just highlighting a difference between Taliyah and Lillia. Lillia, to me, is a lot more of a, like, you are the focus type jungler, right? It's about clearing your own camps, getting in the enemy jungle, this type of thing, where Taliyah is a lot more about setting up your laners. It's very awkward for you to invade the enemy jungle, very hard to hit your abilities point blank. You need to set up from your point click CCs in both top and bot.
Yep, Lillia with that Eep Watch Out does do double the damage onto the center of that ability, and also very good with the true damage on the Q.
What a nice flashy video, Clement.
Yep, highlight matchup of the week coming in from the Chinese side will be between Beijing JD Gaming and Edward Gaming, two titans of the Rift. We are going to start off with some action on the top side. Zoom does find a boomerang into a matchup where he is considered quite favored early on, and just making sure that you know, he can keep the lane out of his own tower. While the rest of JD Gaming look to form up for a deep vision invade. Loken kind of fakes the ward drop there, but EDG Viper is on the other side, so he knows that that wasn't released.
Despite the fact that this is a matchup that is, right, kind of quote-unquote favored to the Gnar, I think this game could feel a bit awkward for Zoom. He's going to be able to push in the lane. Then he's going to set up for a very easy gank coming in from Jiejie, and even if we get to a 2v2, I would still favor the likes of EDG just because of that combo that we've talked about. So it will be a bit awkward for Kanavi to play around. I feel like for JDG, it's going to be a lot more about getting deep vision into EDG's jungle and trying to kind of play around that pathing from Jiejie.
And we also see a very defensive rune setup coming in from Zoom. He is going to go for the fleet footwork, just trying to keep his HP bar as high as possible. As Kanavi coming in from a level 2 gank, scout skill level 1, the Dark Harvest does go down. He has to walk away from lane. He holds onto his flash, but the damage is done. He's not going to have a very comfortable laning phase.
And this is great to see, right? We see not only impact the mid lane, but do what we were setting up, playing for his own jungle advantage, going to steal away these Raptors. Of course, Lillia a much faster clear than Taliyah, and Jiejie might be in trouble.
He is forced out of his own jungle. Nothing on this top side, is going to have to take a very inefficient path over to his blue, and this should give a very sizable advantage to Kanavi, as he still has his full top side to clear.
And this is just going to be really nice for the side of JDG. You've not only put yourself ahead in your own matchup, you've helped Yagao out immensely. We're seeing the respect that Scout has to pay him. Obviously, only level 2, Yagao level 3 going to be able to get in for these quick burst trades. Now for Jiejie, you just don't really have that many options. Even looking to impact the bottom lane will be quite hard when we have the cleanse out of Loken and Alistar just being a pretty good defensive option overall.
I love how tight this 2v2 mid jungle has been playing out. We have some action in the bottom side. Viper with a great blade caller is going to take LvMao down to half health, and Taliyah is on this side of the map as well. So, you know, JD Gaming will have to play pretty conservatively in this bot side. With LeBlanc off the map, we also see Meiko roaming towards the river, just trying to make sure that Yagao isn't going for something sneaky.
Yeah, this is really good coming out from him. This is the one lane you have pressure from, so Meiko is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting for EDG's early game right now. You can hover towards mid. If Yagao is in lane, it's at least going to put a bit of pressure on him, not knowing where you are in Fog of War. And obviously securing the Scuttle Crab for Jiejie. We expect to see Jiejie recall and make his way up towards that top side. Maybe you can now look for that top lane gank. The problem is, though, Kanavi has your Krugs timer as well, so he should know exactly where Jiejie will be.
And just with that, it seems like Zoom is the one that's going to try and find out where Jiejie is going to come from. Of course, Jiejie is not going to have his ultimate just yet in this gank, has to walk over. So Zoom with that ward should stay relatively safe in his top lane. In the meantime, Meiko just dropping, oh, wait a minute, Yagao finding the chain right here, does a lot of damage. Scout still holding on to his summoners. He does have Jiejie coming in. Can they find anything? Doesn't look like it. Maybe just gonna reset the wave here for Scout.
And for any newer viewers of the LPL, this is a champion that is synonymous with Yagao. Again, it felt like this pick alone pretty much carried him and helped carry the likes of JDG through that spring final that they did win last year. And now, going to be picking up this whole wave. It's going to have a really nice reset timing off of this as well to match and definitely be stronger than Scout.
But the bot lane action is heating up as well. Kanavi makes an appearance into this 3v2. Viper has to use his flash early. The Ep does the full damage tick, but the first blood actually goes down to EDG. They do trade 1-for-1, but Scout has teleported inside for the action as well. Meiko might have gone a little bit too far. They're trying to find the kill on him. One loss auto attack will do it. It's full plasma stacks. Loken is stunned underneath the tower, but he does not take aggro. Finally, though, we do see him going down to the support. He sacrificed his life, made sure that he's not going to give the gold over to Scout. Overall, though, we do see EDG with the favorable kill lead, but the gold slightly in favor of JD Gaming, as top lane did not teleport, and it will be able to take away that turret plating.
Overall, I still like that this ended up the way it did for EDG, right? You were just going to outright lose kills. Now, sure, the enemy soul laners do get ahead, but you at least salvage something back. This is also why we don't typically see, like, 3v2 turret dives in this meta, is you have so many champions that are just so hard to dive. Leona, Alistar, Galio, they have a way of locking you down and at least securing 1-for-1. And when you're the team not investing resources into that play, a 1-for-1 is a massive win. And in this term, EDG just won, you know, completely out in terms of kills.
Definitely want to see a replay of that one. Even though Kanavi cut off the path from Viper, it took a very long time for him to actually go down. So they were able to trade away LvMao in the meantime. And basically Kaisa was also in a position that there was no way out for her. So, you know, if we get a replay for that one, would be definitely very illuminating on how that one played out. But in the meantime, we do see Lillia still going ahead and taking that Krug timer, making sure that this Gnar versus Renekton matchup is going to be very, very favorable for Zoom.
Really interesting. We kind of see them trading sides of the map where Jiejie is playing more with this bottom lane this time around. Again, very hard to make anything happen in this bottom lane, especially up against JDG, so I definitely like what JDG are doing, playing more around the top side. And this is the type of Kanavi that we want to see. When you asked me, hey, you know, he was the hyped up jungle last year, getting in the enemy's face. This time around, he has the prio and the pressure, but EDG know this is happening.
It's a 3-man collapse incoming from EDG. Kanavi does get the red buff, but can he make it out with his life? He finds a very easy path out and actually gets some of his prance stacks onto Scout as he heads away. Meiko incoming, having a good surprise for Yagao, but Yagao able to just distort back to his original position. That's going to fizzle out, and now for EDG in the bot lane, they have to rush back in because turret platings are going to be dropped here.
Yep, this was just an overall win for the side of JDG. You not only get away with the topside invade you did, you put a lot of pressure onto Flandre. You forced people out of lane, so Zoom was hitting turret in that time. Yagao, we can see, is consistently hitting turret. You already highlighted the bot lane plates that were going down. So just overall, a time investment loss for the side of EDG.
Flandre also had to use Dominus in that one. He used it preemptively to try and cut Kanavi off. Zoom knows full well that Jiejie is right around the corner, but he's still willing to do some damage over to Flandre. It looks like with that mid-jungle priority, JD Gaming are looking to snowball even further with this Herald play. We do have Meiko coming in from the bottom side of the map. It looks like a stock standard LPL throwdown. Everyone going in for the first Herald, but EDG have to make up a lot of lost time.
True, we see Viper is nowhere close. Zoom is also building up his rage bar, so we'll potentially have that mega if EDG decide to fight, but I like this call by EDG. You're too late on the play. This is an objective for JDG. You just need to back off. Luckily, they did deny one wave from Loken in bot. He started walking mid and then was going to head bot to catch that wave, but after seeing that EDG's bot lane was gone, started making his way up again. But overall, win for the side of JD Gaming.
Very comfortable position for Zoom to be in. Flandre also has to be aware of the potential Herald drop right onto the top lane for the first tower. That one's already down to 3 turret plates, so just a slight breeze and a push from the Herald will take that one. Looks like EDG are not sending anyone to defend that top tower, and Flandre is left in a pretty awkward spot where he does have the vision, but has to pay maximum respect.
And it's just been so interesting that we saw the priority on this combo come out from EDG, and then pretty much opt to leave it on an island. They are going to transfer their pressure from bot to mid, though. Yagao is extremely mobile and still has flash, so I'm not actually sure if they can get anything from this play. It looks like they agree with me and decide not to go for it in the end. Thank God, Clement. Thank God they don't keep wasting more time.
Yeah, EDG are the ones that are struggling to make plays happen on the map. JD Gaming, just with that top lane, they are going to be bleeding away EDG, and this is not a matchup that Flandre can actually get back from. So, you know, EDG are definitely the ones that have to make something happen. I agree with you on that one. But the question really is where? Where can they find those kills? Where can they find those necessary picks? It looks like they're still in the scaling phase of the game. No mythics yet, and we also see the tier build coming out for Viktor. So, you know, just overall very slow going and not a lot of action right now.
And let's remember, this is like a trap that EDG put themselves into with this draft. They completely showed all of their cards in their first 3 picks. Certain things got banned out. My guess is EDG probably did want to go towards that Lucian pick. It got banned out. They didn't really know exactly where to pivot. And now they're not able to find those same plays topside. I still think for EDG, it's about getting Flandre back into this matchup. We've already seen you have no options in either mid or bot unless Meiko does get a free roam timing. But yeah, I feel like playing with your Renekton is probably the only option you have. But he's so far behind at this point, is it really worth it?
Yeah, that's such a hard question. The Herald is going to be dropped down mid. They're not going to go for the top lane. Instead, just getting a little bit more pressure and gold onto Yagao, so he can be further snowballed in this one. He is going to get, I believe, 3 plates overall in that trade, and they are once again setting up for the Drake fight. Taliyah's very far away from the scene. Viper looks like he's getting pushed the whole way in, and if EDG want to contest this, it will be very difficult.
I do want to say, though, Clement, I feel like we're in this same situation so many times where we see a team that plays a more early game oriented composition come out ahead. We're impressed. They're playing the early invades well. Everything's looking good. Then something happens. The early game comp loses. That they can't like play around Baron correctly. They can't set up side lanes. And then the team with whatever it is, Xayah, Viktor, Aphelios, wins in the end.
Don't jinx it, man. Don't jinx it.
That should have happened last game. That should have happened last game.
That has been the LPL special. I'm sorry, folks, but you can never judge an LPL game by its cover 15 minutes because things change really rapidly on the Rift, and we never really know. There's so many Baron steals. We've already seen 2 Baron steals today. Who's to say there couldn't be a 3rd one incoming?
I mean, think about it. We had 2 Elder Dragons in our first game of the day. Like, any shenanigans can happen here, Clement Chu. Any shenanigans.
I'm ready for some shenanigans. I've been casting the LPL for 4 years, and the shenanigans have been growing on me, to say the least. But so far, we're just going to have a stable laning phase. Only 1k advantage for JD Gaming. And, you know, we haven't seen this LeBlanc for quite a while. Can you talk to us about maybe kind of her core builds?
We still see a lot of kind of the expected things where it's obviously the Luden's Tempest first. And then the interesting thing is it kind of depends on where the game state goes from there. Obviously, if the enemy team has the Grievous Wounds, you could see Morelos come out second. You have the option, depending on the enemy team composition, Zhonya's or Banshees, like always. I'd say the only big difference is now typically 3rd. You are seeing that Void Staff rather than what potentially could have used to be the Rabadons, of course. With the fact that Death Cap is now 3,800 gold, and Void Staff has actually only gotten cheaper. It's not even really much of an option at all anymore. Void Staff just does seem, most of the time, the better buy.
And I definitely agree with you on that one. That 300 extra gold on Rabadon is definitely felt. Not as efficient as an item, still packs a punch, but you typically don't see it until the very last item. So, in the meantime, top lane, we did see Jiejie trying for a gank, but Gnar keeping his distance. Zoom doing a very good job there, just never walking forward, never putting himself in the middle of the lane. They don't find the gank. He's going to continuously whittle down this top lane tower. In the meantime, Yagao does spot out Meiko for a little chunk of damage. Just a nice love tap here, as both of the supports do roam towards the middle part of the map.
And actually, on an interesting note, going back to the last point about LeBlanc, Clement, it actually looks like that Yagao might even be going for the Liandry's Anguish, which I do think is a bit weird, but might signal he's thinking more he's going to be hitting frontliners like Meiko and Flandre, rather than looking for some kind of like flank onto the likes of Jiejie. The hard thing is, I feel like jumping into either Viktor or Xayah is quite hard, so maybe he is making the right call overall.
Yeah, definitely could see that situation being quite hairy as Yagao tries to find an angle into the backline. Of course, Luden Tempest does give you the extra magic pen, so typically a little bit better against backline targets that don't have that much natural MR growth. Now, taking stock of the top lane, we have seen this happen the entire game. Zoom just continually hit on that tower, and he's going to get the first tower of the game. That's going to evolve into a pretty easy JD Gaming favored Herald. However, they do have Kaisa very far away from the play. Yagao trying to find some poke onto this one. EDG, they're not relenting. They're going in for this one. Flandre is playing on the flank. And we do see Herald being pulled very, very far into the ramp. Finally, the Weaver's Wall is going to get used. Zoom is in a bad position. So is Yagao. So is LvMao actually stuck inside that cubby right here. But he's going to go in and get the 4-man knock-up right here. Loken flies into the backline. They find Taliyah instantly. LvMao is still alive, but unfortunately for Gnar, he is going to fall down. The Herald is not taken, and it is a 1-for-1 trade. That was a very good play. I love that play coming out from Jiejie. Right at the pixel perfect, honestly. Flandre is going to force a cleanse out of Loken, but the play is going to dissipate, and it looks like EDG are going to reset up towards the dragon.
Oh, though, Flandre might be getting punished.
It is a 3v1. Flandre going back in. Kanavi is just... Yeah, I didn't really want to go on to that play because I felt like it was kind of a weird one. There was no killer instinct from Loken. Like, there was no one that was going to follow up there. So I was just like, what is he doing? And I guess my color took over my play-by-play mind, but wow, look at that corner.
Yeah, just really nice overall from Jiejie. And again, this is also where EDG's comp really thrives, right? These like kind of small fights where you get a lot of the massive zones coming out from EDG's comp. Viper and Scout both playing it quite well. If you notice, at the start of that fight, Yagao didn't have much mana, was already a bit chunked, so not even really able to follow up either. And now we're going to see Flandre go in and force out that flash and cleanse as well. And Clement, 2 games in a row, we see Kanavi have some pretty questionable solo plays. Plays that are even hard to empathize with what he's going for. I don't understand,
I don't have
Clement.
any empathy whatsoever. I don't. I think he's just trying to... He sees a Renekton without Dominus and Flash. He's like, you know, I'm going to bet on this. And it's just the gambling spirit that he's taken up in the LPL. Again, we're going to see another flash force away from Flandre, coming in at a great angle. He's already prepared here. Flandre is going to take a bit of damage, but Zoom is nowhere near Mega Gnar, so I don't think this is a great team fight for JD Gaming. LvMao falls right down after the burst coming out. They are getting forced away, and this Drake should go over to EDG. This looks like JD Gaming pushed a little bit too far. Yagao trying to salvage the situation, doesn't find the pick, and the dragon does go over to Jiejie.
We already said it. Don't believe in the bait of the early game composition advantage. It just typically doesn't work here. It only worked last game because JDG threw it away. But you highlighted Zoom was nowhere close to Mega Gnar. JDG were in a lot of awkward positions. And this goes back to the discussion about Gnar that, especially people in the West are having a lot. It seems like the consensus over there is that it's kind of a useless champion, which I could understand why. It's very awkward to play around Gnar and his timings. You're not exactly a split pusher. You're not exactly a team fighter. You are like a pseudo counter in lane to some things, but you're very squishy. So we are kind of seeing the pitfalls with Gnar as a champion here in this game, despite the fact that he had a pretty sizable early lead.
We will have to go back to the Gnar discussion, but right now it's round 2 for Herald number 2 as we see the combination go out onto LvMao. He falls down once again. The Herald is taken up by Kanavi, but it's full-on retreat for JD Gaming for now. They're getting Herald towards the top lane. Zoom is the one on the backside, trying to keep the members away from the rest of his teammates. Double Boomerang should keep him alive, and the ultimate does not land for Meiko. So JD Gaming actually turning around the chase at this point, just trying to create some distance. And it is going to be a support traded away for the Herald. How do you think about that one?
I think overall it's probably a slight edge to JDG. They still get the Herald, but I think the problem is wherever JDG drop down this Herald, whether it's to secure mid tower, whether it's to pick up bot, I don't think it really translates into a sizable pressure advantage. I think probably opening bot might be nice because you're giving Yagao a longer lane to play through, or even zoom on the opposite end if, you know, they do change up lane allocation. But if it comes to team fights, which, let's be honest, all LPL games come to team fights, it still feels like EDG are the ones in control.
I agree with you. And tying it back to the Gnar discussion, we haven't seen frontline teamfight Gnars actually work out. There's very few instances of good Mega Gnar play where you see multi-man knockups, where you see the timing actually be correct. What we have seen, though, is split push Gnar be very, very effective. You know, LPL is a region that loves to blind pick Renekton. That's a great counter pick for Gnar, and we have seen Gnars just do their work in sort of the side lanes, and honestly, that's why I think Gnar should only be a counter pick and not a blind pick. Blind pick Gnar for me just doesn't work, and we've seen it fall flat on its face so many times.
Clement, but this sets up what you wanted to see before the game. You wanted to see some like split push elements coming out from JDG, Zoom playing a side lane, and we're both saying they can't win team fights, most likely. It would take a real big mess up from EDG for them to be able to come out ahead. So, did you believe that JDG can set up these side lanes properly, Clement?
Hey, you know what? I've always been a JDG fan. You know, I've never agreed that they're the best team, but I've always said that they're the most entertaining one because they're able to make plays when you least expect it. And for me, Yagao has always had that wow factor. When he's on LeBlanc, like last split, he had an 85% win rate on LeBlanc and over 10 KDA. This man is like, aside from Scout, I think he's the best LeBlanc player. Like, it's between these two players, essentially. Like, who's the better one? It's
very interesting that, like, that the sentiment on Yagao is so down, where, again, on Zoe and LeBlanc, I think you can consider this guy an S-tier mid laner in LPL. Maybe after that, you know, in other champions, A-, B+, still not bad by any means, but like you're saying, when he gets his hands on LeBlanc, it's just a sight to see. I agree. The only other ones that come to mind for me are Scout and Rookie. I think Rookie's LeBlanc also definitely up there in the discussion, but a much less common champion for him.
Yeah, most of the times we see Rookie on Orianna duty, it's just like, hey, the side lanes are going crazy, you have to be the sane person in the building. And Rookie just kind of accepts his fate as the caretaker and the fireman of IG.
Not like this, Clement. I want to see some prime pop off Rookie.
I'm sorry, but it's so true. Look, if Rookie had stable teammates, I think we would see a very different player in him, but I think he's just too nice, you know? I can't imagine him shouting the Shy down to not pick Vayne or Callista or something like that, so he always has to be the more wave-oriented player.
I think this discussion is the far more interesting one. I feel like the viewers probably want us to get back to the game, which, I mean...
That is true.
To be fair, not much is happening, but Drake is coming up in 19 seconds. EDG are on setup first. I want to keep our eye on how Jiejie sets up with these Weaver's Wall, and then the zone control we're talking about coming out from Scout with those gravitational fields.
Ooh, Scout's actually being tagged up here. The Lilting Lullaby does go down, but they don't find the damage on him necessarily. They do force the Flash and the Chaos Storm coming out, so it's going to be pretty difficult for EDG to re-engage on this one. Also, Zoom with the perfect Mega Gnar. This is the Mega Gnar that we were talking about. We wanted to see. Zoom finds the great ultimate onto Viktor. He can't survive from that one, and Flandre is also behind enemy lines. Kanavi is very low. Can Flandre find the kills? He does pop the Sterix Gauge, but isn't able to chase up. Jiejie finally coming into the fray. Flandre is still alive. He's so goddamn tanky. Loken is stuck there, and what looked like a 4v1 situation against Flandre actually turns on its head, and Flandre is the one that is saying, I'm not stuck in here with you, you're stuck in here with me.
Clement, I have no idea how EDG were able to turn that one around. Everything looked right for JDG. They hit the sleep, they forced the flash. Zoom's mega timing is almost perfect. It's almost like a send from the heavens, Clement. But at the end of the day, EDG come out ahead. They bait out the very cooldown reliant JDG composition. They get the dragon, and now they're on soul point. As we roll into the replay, everything was looking good here. You said really nice Lilting Lullaby. It's going to force Scout to flash as Loken does go in. And look at Zoom's rage bar. He's just about to turn Mega. I was actually kind of surprised he jumped out to start. He could have even just gone right into the enemy team. Is then forced to flash over, and they pick off Scout. But really nice play coming from Flandre, actually, getting right into the backline. Viper doing a nice job of self-peeling, does end up getting back, but in hindsight, obviously very good play from Flandre to keep them in this fight. He was buying so much time and honestly dished out what looks like about 80% of this damage and bought time for the rest of EDG to follow up.
I was counting the seconds. Flandre was 1v4 for 8 seconds there. And that just tells you there's only one god in Season 11. That god is Gore Drinker. Bow down to him.
Yeah, I mean, very strong item, obviously very situational on the comps that come out. Sadly, in the LPL, the comps that Gore Drinker is strong in and against are the compositions that we see in 90% of our games. So you are right, we bow down to Gore Drinker in the LPL as Zoom and Flandre just kind of exchanging a bit of a handshake.
Yep, Flandre blows his entire rotation, and Zoom still outtrades him with 1-3 proc. So, yeah, that does tell you how the matchup tends to go into the later phases of the game. Really not expecting Flandre to be able to come out of his own lane after this point, and JD Gaming are going to be the ones setting up for the Baron with that side lane advantage. We do have a Mega Gnar and a potential teleport on the books for JD Gaming, so we see them, you know, just waiting around for the opportunity here. Not going to find it just yet, but it's good to see that JD Gaming are definitely coming into this prepared, and they will always have that setup regardless if it's going to work or not.
True. We are going to see JDG at least like having a decent time play around side lanes. The other thing that I'd like to see JDG do more right is that they do have Kaisa with the semi-global, so she can even join into a pick onto sides. So seeing JDG kind of all in on this, but EDG thus far have done a pretty good job of, like JDG last time around, just kind of avoiding a lot of these side lane trades. Not completely, because I don't think you can make Flandre ignore the 1v1. It's kind of like in his blood. But still, EDG playing really well off of these big neutral objective timers as they're pinging Baron.
Wow, this is interesting. Just going for a 5-man force towards the top side. A lot of question marks from JD Gaming, but at the end of the day, EDG do pull off. It was just a vision incursion onto the river.
Yeah, I also want to highlight... I want to highlight real quick that we do see the Morello coming out for Yagao. Obviously, the only real healing we have coming out from EDG is Flandre, and I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but even with the Leandries, right, he was highlighting that he is going to be hitting more frontline. At least that's how he views his role in these team fights, which, whether right or wrong, I think the Morellos at least then does go along with that initial buy of like, hey, I'm going to be hitting Renekton in the frontline.
And that's something I really like about Yagao's builds, because in the past he's gone for very much defensive builds and just relied on experience difference to kind of kill the backline. He was always going for Banshees a lot of the time. He didn't really go into Rabadons that much, and he definitely wasn't like Knight, where, you know, Knight is always just like, oh, I'm gonna build a Magi Soul Stealer because I'm Knight. I'm the best, stuff like that. So he was always a very defensive LeBlanc in terms of his itemization, but just because he played side lane so much and got so much EXP, he was still able to have the same kill threat onto the intended targets.
And again, JDG going to do a good job at utilizing that LeBlanc pick to just keep controlling vision. And I wonder if we're going to get to a point where JDG will feel comfortable enough to try to either use the Baron to force and engage, or I guess the good thing about their composition, they don't necessarily even need to start Baron. They can just throw out a Swirl Seed.
Oh no, you hate to see it, but LvMao fumbles the WQ combo and also burns his flash. So quite a lot used there for absolutely nothing.
Especially right before Dragon. Dragon coming up in 35 seconds. And we need to remember, this is sole point for EDG. So both teams, of course, need to fight this one. And big combo being down for JDG.
LvMao goes back in again, gets Viper's ultimate straight off the bat, but Zoom is in a very good Mega Gnar position, holding down the front line. They're going to get the Dominus out. They're going to get Meiko's flash as well. And finally, Flandre does go in, but he's hit up against the wall. And we see the Zhonya's burnt by Scout as Kanavi over the wall is able to attack him with the Lilting Lullaby. Kanavi goes down very, very low, but JD Gaming still hang on to control over this side of the map. We see Flandre teleporting in at full health. This is going to be a very difficult one for JD Gaming to secure. Both junglers heading towards that objective. It will be Kanavi in the end. They keep the Dragon Soul away, but the question is how many members can actually survive this one. Scout over the wall, not able to find the damage. Flandre not getting the Ruthless Predator, and this one goes to the side of JD Gaming. I've just been so impressed by Zoom's control of the Gnar bar. This is the best Mega Gnar that we've seen come out of any of these LPL teams.
Definitely. It seems like he always has it up when the team fight is supposed to happen. Also, where the fights are happening are very beneficial for JDG. JDG, I think, definitely prefer the fights happening either in the open in terms of mid lane or in the river, giving them a lot of angles to play around with champions like LeBlanc and as well as the Kaisa. For EDG, you want it to happen with like your 5-man stacked, enemy stacked in the jungle when you do have so much AoE damage and AoE CC, and it felt like where and when the fight took place at that instance really favored the side of JDG.
Yeah, hopefully we will get a replay of that, but Gnar was basically holding down the fort right there, and Kanavi over the wall was able to dish out a ton of damage. Before the replay, though, I do want to ask you a question. This is kind of interesting. We are seeing the Runan's Hurricane being purchased here by Kaisa instead of what we usually see out of the third item, which is the Infinity Edge, more of the Assassin build. So kind of want to get your thoughts on that one.
I'll be honest, I feel like the Assassin build would probably just be better overall, especially in terms of this game, where a lot of the times we've been seeing Loken play the Assassin role along with Yagao, right? It's been a lot of them kind of jumping in tandem onto some of the backline threats of EDG, or even just following up when frontliners like Meiko are running away. So, very interesting choice by Loken.
Seems like a more frontline-oriented build where he can spread the plasma stacks, get the % HP execution down, but not something we typically have seen from LPL Kaisas, definitely. Once again, EDG are baiting JD Gaming in for another Baron play. We see Zoom still very high on the Mega Gnar bar. Scout having a favorable trade against Yagao. He's going to be looking for more as he tags Kanavi once more. And once again, we do see Zoom on the side lane split push. He is in a cooldown phase, so not being able to get that Mega Gnar for another likely around 15 to 16 seconds. He is heading over while EDG is already starting this one up. Jiejie with a great wall trying to seal the JD Gaming members away, but Kanavi and Zoom are across the wall. The gravity field has been dropped. LvMao is going in. The Baron is down very low, but Flandre is trying to play keep away. Kanavi goes inside, loses a smite fight to Jiejie. Jiejie secures the Baron, and they take down LvMao as well. It's going to be a 2-for-0 trade on the side of EDG. A great Mega Gnar, but is it enough for the rest of the members to actually get away from EDG? Doesn't look like it. He's playing 5 beasts versus 1, and finally Zoom does drop. So EDG, with a great gambit, with a great play around the Mega Gnar bar, are able to get the Baron.
Jiejie on point with the smites. Great team fighting coming out from EDG overall. I love the use of Taliyah wall this game. Jiejie showing why he's so confident going towards these junglers that, you know, might be prioritized a lot worldwide, but we don't see all too often here in the LPL. 4K gold advantage. You still have members down on the side of JDG. It feels like EDG can pretty much dictate whatever they want on the map. Maybe with the fact that Dragon's coming up in 1 minute 30, they are electing into these recalls.
We did say that EDG had the better 5v5 composition. Now we have to take a closer look at this one.
Yeah, and we do see LvMao going in quite early. And Flandre, once again, man, buying so much time for the rest of this EDG team. Jiejie just out-smiting Kanavi is sad to see. But on the opposite end, Scout, Meiko, Flandre doing so much work. So they pretty much went on every angle of the fight. We saw all members kind of performing in tandem. And sadly, I think LvMao pulling the trigger, maybe not necessarily a bit too early, but none of the other members were able to follow up with his engage as well.
Definitely felt like EDG just baited JD Gaming to come into them, had a very favorable closeout, had a choreographed fight where they knew what they wanted to do, and the last tick of damage coming out for Kanavi, he was 60 HP away from securing the Baron, so unfortunately we're not going to see a third Baron steal today. EDG in full control of the map and likely looking at that Dragon Soul fight.
I like that you said EDG wanting JDG to run into them, because even before that Baron fight, right, we saw what happened when LeBlanc jumped onto Viktor. Viktor loves when the champions on the side of JDG just jump onto him. He has so much control around himself, a lot of upfront damage he can just burst out, the shield from his Q. If he needs to, can drop the ultimate as well. EDG thrive in those scenarios, as well as Viper, right? Pops the ultimate, he's in out of harm's way, can then lock down who's ever in front of him. as the Taliyah
and we are going to go into the Drake fight directly. It's burning down super low right now. It is going to be Viper who takes that one away, and they get the Dragon Soul. LvMao does get out alive, but EDG are in hot pursuit. Zoom is on the wrong side of the map. How can he get out of this one? But we do see a good stun into the mid lane. A Mega Gnar not coming out as Viper finishes the Gnar off. No ultimate for you, Zoom. And Flandre chases away the remainders. Yagao finds the chain, but it doesn't really matter as Jiejie does have the Zhonya's. Loken able to escape with a bare sliver of health right here. It is going to be EDG in full control and JD Gaming in full retreat.
And EDG now have Baron, they have the Infernal Soul with 3 Infernals. They're hitting like an absolute truck right now, and you're just going to expect to see them push the bottom side as they are. We do see Flandre pressuring in mid as well to kind of separate the members of JDG, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them pick up at least 1, if not 2 inhibitors here.
But Flandre might be in trouble here. The Ignite ticking down. He doesn't die! Still going down. Finally, Yagao is able to pick up that kill, and that should slow the push of EDG as they attempt to set up for some sneaky plays right here, but think better of it.
Yeah, sadly, that one pick is going to cost EDG a lot. Potentially could have gone for at least that bottom side inhibitor. As we go into the replay, nice wall coming out from Jiejie again. Just pretty much separates the key members of JDG, man. There's absolutely nothing they could do here. We do see that LvMao and Zoom have to try and go in and look for the steal. LvMao is chunked out early. And then here we're going to see, once again, Zoom managing his Mega Bar so nicely, but gets bursted down almost instantly. Flandre running forward. And just the team fighting has been so on point from EDG. 2 different games, 2 different styles of composition, and they've just been excelling.
I really like how EDG are not hesitating to pull the trigger, because they know that JD Gaming have to get poke in, they know they have to get multiple rotations. EDG are willing to start the fight right away and force JD Gaming to blow a bunch of cooldowns just for the engage. And I think that's really what's coming up big for them, like just the understanding that this composition is inferior in team fights for JD Gaming, and being willing to just start things regardless of the position of JD Gaming on the map.
I just love EDG. Oh, with Scout.
But Scout actually does go in for a teleport on this one. Yagao very low on mana. He does force the Zhonya's away, and Loken is in to clean this up. I think Scout's going to fall down right here. The double buffs are transferred over to Loken, and a pretty big oopsies right there. I'm not sure that the Zhonya's was necessary during that chase down.
Clement, the best part is, me and you were having a conversation earlier on today, and you said, man, I think this might be Scout's best split. I haven't seen him run it down for no reason yet. There you go, Clement. You've seen it.
The good old Scout, man. You can always depend on him to have sort of these oopsies every once in a while. Oh, he actually did have to blow the Zhonya's because of the burst damage incoming from Yagao. Didn't really want to fall in for that one, but the chain still applied the plasma stacks, and that's going to stall out the game.
It also looks like him and Flandre weren't on the same page, right? Because Flandre could have continued to run forward if he knew right after that that Scout would want to keep looking for it, but instead was finishing off clearing the wave. So maybe a bit of miscommunication or just misjudging the situation on either side.
This is going to be one of the first times that JD Gaming are going to have the first foot into the Baron pit. Scout has just revived. He doesn't have his teleport. That was a huge throw that we just saw from the EDG mid laner. Now it's Yagao's chance to play zone away, but so far he hasn't found any damage on the enemy team. Zoom is going in for their turnaround. Can they actually find Viper? Jiejie still at full health, Viper at full health, and they're the one slicing down the JD Gaming members as Viper shreds through the front line. Flandre is still standing. Loken is running for his life at this point as Jiejie closes down the escape route. He doesn't go for the full-on play, but EDG are going to turn around and take away this Baron.
And you highlighted it best, Clement. I think the fact that Yagao wasn't able to find any damage onto the likes of EDG, and JDG overall, they had a window where they're 5v4. They know that Scout shouldn't be anywhere close yet, but weren't able to find any pick, weren't able to find any damage. And by the time they did look for the engage, Scout had already joined the fight. Viper has those self-peel tools we talked about, and Flandre was able to jump in and be a massive kind of problem for the side of JDG once again.
Yeah, just trading front lines in the end, and definitely coming out in favor of EDG. As Renekton with that Spirit Visage, the Call the Meek, definitely getting a lot more HP back compared to Zoom in that one. And we are, you know, we've been praising Yagao's LeBlanc and saying how good this man has been on the champion. So far, a pretty quiet game from him.
It is pretty disappointing to see, right? We saw some good things in the early laning phase with him and Kanavi, but not really able to push the tempo of the game forward after the early lead we saw from JDG. And now for EDG, they're just playing the 2-lane setup once again. They could take this a bit slow. They're probably going to have to wait for the next mid-wave. Hopefully, Flandre can kind of pull this wave, and then, you know, you're kind of crashing at the same time and looking for the setup. But JDG might want to be decisive this time around. They're posturing for the engage.
Pretty interesting item swap out for LvMao. He actually sold his Shirelias. Has sold his Turbo Chem Tank for the Shirelias, but never mind. Flandre coming in from the flank. Yagao might be caught in position right here. We do see Jiejie popping into the Zhonya's. Kanavi going solo. Yagao gets exploded by Viper as Viper flashes forward with a very authoritative kill right here, and he's going to be heading straight towards the Elder Dragon. So a pick worked up by JD Gaming. They don't find their targets, and EDG on the backhand come up big.
And EDG do this so fast, right? You can't even angle for a position for Kanavi to go for a potential steal. I love that Scout is still chasing down Zoom with Baron, with Soul, with Elder. Clement, we gotta be honest. We can't lie to people. This game's over. This game is done and dusted. The question is, how does it end, Clement? How does
You're
it
trying
end?
to jinx it. You're trying it to bring it to Game 3. I feel it in your tone. You don't actually mean what you say. You want to see more LPL action. You want to see the fiesta. But is EDG going to allow that to happen? That's going to be the big question. This should be an easy push. They have everything on their side. JD Gaming, we have seen the miracles happen before. They are the teamfight masters. They are 5v4 in this one, but Yagao is almost up. This is a super tense moment as they're both trading blows across these Nexus towers. Finally, Jiejie is going to make the first move. He's going to use the engage, but LvMao goes in for the 3-man knockup. Loken is on the side against Flandre, and can he actually escape for this one? He is able to flash out, but in the meantime, Yagao goes down, LvMao goes down, the tower goes down, and EDG are going to come out of this series 2-0.
Phenomenal performance coming out from EDG. Viper and Meiko doing so much work in these team fights. Again, the creativity with the Taliyah walls coming out from Jiejie were exceptional. And you counted down the exact seconds of how long Flandre was 1v4ing in these team fights. It definitely feels like a group effort from the side of EDG, and it's so nice to see them when they do pick up these kind of straight 5v5 team compositions.
EDG, even when they were at their best, was sort of a one-track team. They only knew that mid-game tempo style. They never really played late-game teamfights particularly well, and they weren't really known for getting a lot of counter picks in lane. I think we're seeing an EDG that kind of fulfills all the fantasies of EDG fan dreams, you know? They have that hyper carry that is very much in the vein of Def, that can play the laning phase, that can be that teamfight big carry, and they have Scout, who's finally, you know, not inting as much, I would say, and a top laner that can play side lane. This is the complete package for EDG, and I really feel like the sky's the limit for this team.
Yeah, we were talking about skill ceilings earlier in the day when it came to BLG, and if we're talking about ceilings now, with this team, it feels like they completely blow like anyone out of the water. They could be in contention with teams like Top Esports, right? That when you look at Top Esports on paper, you know, one day they can be the best team in the world. And it feels like EDG are right up there with them if the parts are performing, which the parts on this team are performing a lot more consistently than the parts on Top Esports. Then, again, it's going to be rough for any team going up against EDG.
Yeah, they look so damn solid in all their positions right here. Even Jiejie is showing up big today. I definitely feel like he was a standout player. A lot of questions going towards the organization. Hey, Jiejie doesn't look like a top jungler. Why aren't you running Clear Love? Why is this guy still on the roster? I think he's going to silence a lot of doubters with his performance in this series especially. I love his Taliyah usage, very creative. And Flandre is just the teamfight piece that I think we've been missing from EDG for so long. I think their last great top laner was probably Koro, and that was a long time ago.
The thing I like about Flandre is he's just so well-rounded, right? You've highlighted his ability in side lanes. He's really good at kind of like controlling that. He's always catching waves. He knows how far out he can push. He's really good in isolated laning phase. Even last split when, let's be honest, it was a bit contentious when he was on the likes of LNG. They very publicly admitted they tried to sell him on the roster.
That was
had to be tense. Yeah, had to be tense working in that environment. Came back in towards the end, was getting some solo kills in laning phase as well. And like you're saying now, exceptional team fighter. I think especially when he's on this kind of more disruption, Aatrox, Renekton, Volibear kind of jump into the backline and cause chaos role, we're really seeing Flandre thrive.
And I think this game, again, is another great highlight to how Gnar isn't really working out as a team fight piece. We did see up until the 25-minute mark, it looked so damn good for JD Gaming. It looked like they were about to win the game. And all of a sudden, EDG just pulled that sneaky Baron. They knew that Zoom was off his Mega Gnar bar. It was in cooldown, so there was no way he could charge it up. And they do this super decisive play with the Taliyah wall and just turn the game from there. So, you know, once again, not really fitting out into the teamfight piece that he is all advertised to be, despite all of the buffs that Riot has been giving to Gnar. I'm still pretty, you know, up in the air about this one.
The funny thing about this is we highlighted Zoom managed that rage bar better than any player we've seen. If it couldn't work here in this situation, who can make it work, Clement? Who can make it work? Doesn't seem like anyone.
It's such a neutral thing. Yeah, like, because the enemy team can learn to play around it as well. So you don't really have the advantage. And the Gnar rage bar is actually random by nature, which is makes it even harder to control. You know, after that series, I think we have seen JD Gaming. Do you give them an A+ for improving upon their previous sets? Do you think this is an advancement and they just ran into a very tough opponent? Or do you think this is kind of a slide back in their performance compared to the one against BLG?
I think it's in a similar position. I think it's, you know, hard to take anything away. We saw game one should have been the game they won. I think they did manage against EDG in the early game quite well. They never fell more than 2k gold behind. And then they flopped one setup at Baron, right? That's very easy to go back and review and kind of correct and not let it happen again or happen too much. I'd say the more scary game was this one, which, to be fair, right, this isn't the typical style we see JDG play, where they would have had to play this more early game oriented, side lane focused composition, and they just weren't really able to execute it all that well. We never saw the pivot into side lanes that we expected. They weren't able to push the pace of the game early all that much at all. And yeah, I think there's still clear strengths for JDG to build on. I don't think they should necessarily pivot from what made them strong in 2020 all too much. But the questions on early game are still going to be there. But, right, when you have players like Yagao and then kind of Loken and LvMao in the bot lane, especially in 2021 where we've just injected so much bot lane talent especially, I don't really know how you kind of salvage those potential issues.
I think that leads to a pretty obvious question, but in this series, we saw Loken was, you know, consistently behind in the laning phase, and we have seen this in JD Gaming versus teams like Top Esports or Invictus Gaming, where they really can't rely on their bottom lane. They don't expect their bottom lane to come out ahead, and they're starting to roam LvMao very early on. Do you think that Mystic is going to be 100% fill-in for the bottom side of JD Gaming?
I think it's too hard to say. Obviously, we had... Hey, no, I was going to preface. We had LPL 7 days a week last year, Clement. Obviously, none of us had too much time to watch LCK. Obviously, the word is, from kind of talking to some of the LCK casters, Mystic is very good. But I don't know if he's going to come in and shore up like a laning weakness on the side of JDG the way that maybe they would need to. And then the question will always come back to, how does this change the way they facilitate Kanavi? Maybe you can even start questioning if that's really how they should play anymore, but, you know, that was the setup when Kanavi came into the team. They all very publicly agreed on. They all said, hey, Kanavi, we're going to play around you. We're going to make you comfortable. Can they switch it up?
Yeah, that's very difficult questions there. Loken has been with the team for a long time, but when JD Gaming actually took down Mystic in the playoffs, it was with Imp instead of Loken. So that's kind of an interesting tidbit there to boost up kind of like the historical picture between these two AD carries. And we are going to go into some highlights of that series and find out who the MVP actually is of Game 2.
Yep, and we are going to see here, this is where you timed it, Clement. This is where you timed Flandre, just controlling so much time on this fight, really giving room for the likes of Viper to kind of dish out all the damage on the backside. And man, Flandre, again, just such a monster this game overall. His target selection, his ability to get on the back line, when he uses his abilities, everything is just so pristine coming out of this top laner.
I love how long he actually holds on to the Gore Drinker, waits until the Sterix Gauge is actually used, and then he uses the Gore Drinker to get some more HP. You get more when you're low anyway. So just great usage, great tanking coming in here, and a little bit, this was the decisive play that I really liked out of EDG, just straight rushing that Baron when they knew Zoom did not have his Mega Gnar.
And 20% of his team's damage, involved in so many kills, and I think the most impressive stat, right, is the almost 50% damage taken. We saw in those clips what this man was doing as a frontliner, and it's going to be interesting to see going forward how EDG keeps evolving, where we've seen that they're both willing to put resources into Flandre, but they also have trust in him to leave him on an island and still have an impact in the game later on. They really have both dimensions coming out from this player.
Why would anyone want to play a tank when you can take 50% of your team's damage and get MVPs on a fighter anyway? That's it's very interesting. We are playing on patch 11.1, so Grievous Wounds was buffed, Gore Drinker was nerfed. Doesn't seem to make a difference whatsoever.